much, and I appreciate the speaker for admitting openly on the record that it is unconstitutional. But the concerns that I have are around the fact that we are sitting here pretending as if we all are looking out for the Constitution, yet we are coming from completely different angles. So let me go to Professor Shaw. To be clear, which branch of government is responsible for interpreting what is and what is not legal?
Well, the Supreme Court, the Article 3 judicial branch has the final word.
So the judiciary is who it is. So it's not the legislators.
You know, I'd say every branch has an obligation to interpret the Constitution. The final word comes from the courts.
From the courts. It's not the former speakers. It's not everyday people. It's not the president. I just wanted to make sure that we understood who it was that was responsible. And what is so frustrating for so many of the American people, the ones that are watching right now and otherwise, and the reason that they're outraged and scared is because what we see right now is a diminishing of all these institutions. Right now, we have a legislative branch that has decided that it intentionally would disregard their duties. They are not checking the president whatsoever. The only check that the American people have had thus far has been from the judiciary. And the judiciary isn't pulling this out of the sky. In fact, they are coming from basic reading of like the plain language of the Constitution for all of those that are constitutionalists when we start talking about things such as what birthright citizenship is. But one of the things that I want to make sure that I get to, because there are deeper implications if we go down this rabbit hole. Imagine the type of world where the president does whatever he wants to and no one can rein him in. It's a world that right now many people are afraid of. Let me put it this way. If Joe Biden would have done an executive order for abortion, despite what the Supreme Court said, that would have been a problem. Imagine if the state of Colorado kept Trump off the ballot and other states follow suit. That would have been a problem. Or imagine if Jack Smith ignored Eileen Cannon and with the help of an activist judge decided that he was going to prosecute the sitting president anyway. The problem that we have right now is that if we continue down this road, then we will not have a rule of law because we have people that are currently serving and they're saying things like, ignore the judge's order. What it means to have law and order in this country is that you follow the order and you go through the appeals process, even if you dislike what the judge did. Thank you, and I yield.
What we just watched was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett laying down a very serious warning about the fragility of our democracy if former President Trump, or any president, were allowed to ignore federal court injunctions. She wasn't just making a partisan point, she was walking us through the core of how our Constitution is designed to function. Crockett reminded the room that while every branch interprets the Constitution in some way, the judiciary has the final say. That's not up for debate. It's the safeguard that keeps power in check. Think about what she's saying. The legislative branch right now has chosen, in many cases, to turn a blind eye rather than provide meaningful checks on the executive branch. That leaves the courts as the last barrier between order and chaos. Federal judges aren't pulling rulings out of thin air. They're applying the plain text of the Constitution. If even those rulings are ignored, what we have left isn't a democracy bound by law, but a system where the most powerful figure does as they please. Crockett used hypotheticals to make this plain. Imagine if President Biden had signed an executive order reinstating abortion rights after the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. Even if you agree with abortion rights, ignoring the court would have been lawless. Or imagine a state removing Trump from the ballot without following constitutional procedures. That too would be lawless. Her point is that the rule of law doesn't bend just because it benefits your side in the moment. If we normalize ignoring court orders now, there's nothing stopping a future president, or this one, from ruling by raw power alone. This is why her warning resonates so deeply. The erosion of institutions doesn't happen overnight. It happens when Congress refuses to do its job, when political leaders tell supporters to ignore judges, when respect for the appeals process vanishes. And then suddenly, people wake up and realize the checks and balances they took for granted have already collapsed. For those watching, here's the real takeaway. You don't have to be a lawyer or a constitutional scholar to understand that democracy is only as strong as the people who defend its rules. When you hear a leader say, ignore the court, that's a red flag. When Congress sits on its hands instead of checking the executive, that's a red flag. And the way to push back is through action, calling your representatives, supporting judicial independence, and above all, voting for leaders who actually respect the system they swear to uphold. Because Crockett is right, without the rule of law, without real checks on power, we don't have democracy. We just have a strongman who does whatever he wants. And that's exactly what Americans, regardless of party, should refuse to accept.